So what are your takeaways? I haven't looked at, I was looking.
I posted on the COP because I was not sure how to turn in the final evaluation.
That's
I was like,
fine.
you know what?
No, that works. That's fine. So yeah, so what were your takeaways, Hannah?
I felt like I really loved the fact that I was able to interact with the kids that came in, which admittedly was not that many. Like, I could count them on my fingers. But I felt like it was really nice to interact with them and kind of establish a, I don't want to say relationship, because that don't, I guess to me that sounds a little creepy. I don't know why, but it's yeah, I just felt like the interaction with them was what I enjoyed the most. And I felt like it kind of let me, you know, not only get to know the kids better, but kind of get a feel for what it's like to really talk to middle schoolers, I guess.
Cool. So what will you do next?
Well, I really would like to continue with the program, but make some very serious changes with it, at least for me, because I found that doing the 5 to 6 month span of it was awful, because it was hard to get guest speakers to come in. And I felt like for the length of time, I don't think anybody would have had the attention span to really stick with it, I guess. So definitely shorting the amount of time, and also trying to make it an outreach program to, rather than hosting it at the library, actually go to schools and present it. Because, and I know that I had talked about this, there was I approached one of the schools in the area where we did Future Ready, and they seemed very interested, and they had asked, you know, is this something that, you know, you can do at the school? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Granted, they never called me back, but it really got me thinking, you know, this is something that probably would be a little more beneficial doing it at the schools rather than hosting it, because, and I feel like it almost kind of eliminates, you know, well, maybe not entirely eliminates, but, you know, sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but I feel like the big problem that it would eliminate possibly is like transportation. You don't have to have the kids actually travel. You know, they can just stay at the school, you know, after school and just, you know, go to the program. But I'm trying to think of.
Can I ask you a question, Hannah? Are there any community partners where you could, you know, sort of host the program there as well? Like, are there any businesses that you could work with next time and host, you know, do some of it at the businesses or at the community center or wherever else those teens may be?
Businesses, probably not, but we do, our library has a good relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. So I know that we could probably collaborate with them again. And I know that one of the other partners that we had was with the local community college. And I'm definitely sure that they would be willing to host it at one point. Maybe like have, you know, just have a place where we can hold a meeting or hold a session.
Yeah, that seems like, you know, a way to just expand your reach.
Well, considering
community college, maybe they have, sometimes they have more resources, you know, they can, maybe there can, or maybe the
we were definitely more on board with it than the local community leaders that I tried to get in. So I think that they would, yeah, I think they would probably, again, be very interested in getting back on it.
You know, that would be great, you know, because the school is good, you know, that's a good way to go about it, but extending the reach to some of the folks out in the community who have a real stake in keeping those kids happy and in that area. That
Plus, being a local of this area for close to 15 years, the current director at our Chamber of Commerce, she and I went to school together.
That's
and
great.
The one contact that I have at the local community college, she was my teacher at one point when I was there.
Okay.
And was also my not real advisor. I had a different one, but I always went to her anyways. But
so you have some relationships to build on there. That's good.
Exactly.
Cool.
You got to take advantage of the Mayberry-esque system of the small town.
Absolutely.
As I like to call it, the Mayberry-esque.
Great. So Holly, what are your takeaways?
Right now, if I have the chance to do it again, I would definitely do it. I spent a lot of time what I called being a talking head, and that's something that I would change next time. I do want to keep the personality portion of that because the kids were really open to that and understanding why. There's a method to the madness. You know, they didn't understand introverts and extroverts. They knew they were one of the other, but didn't know that it was okay. You know, there's so much peer pressure, especially at the middle school level. So I really want to keep that, the personality part of it. But then instead of me doing so much talking about the different careers, I would like to shorten that into this is who you are, this are what your strengths are. Pick something and then really go into a research thing. I got a lot of really great ideas from the kids. They wanted more interaction. They wanted more activities. They had some very specific questions. I wasn't expecting a 12-year-old to ask me about benefits. You know, what are the salary and benefits can I expect with this job? And I thought, okay, you know, they kept me on my toes. So I would really like to give them an opportunity to explore some of the careers they want to. What are the salary ranges? What are the opportunities they have? What is the education required to get there? What can they do now to start making those steps forward? So I would like to present and then facilitate their own exploration as they get into it. But I was very welcomed at the school. I mean, it was unbelievable, the opportunity I was given. They're like, you can come once a week the whole year if you want to, whatever you want to do. So I tried to be as selfish as I could for my project, but at the same time not to extend my welcome and to consider that the classroom teacher who was giving up a day for me. So 5 weeks was a really good amount, and I plan to check in with them this spring sometime just to see if they have any more questions before they get ready to make their schedules as they officially enter junior high, and see if I can what they learned at school.
Mommy, how many middle schoolers, youth did you work with at the time?
About 150.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I got to see them in our 6th grade.
That's amazing. That's great.
And some of them have come into the library since then. They'll come in and they'll, it was a great entrance to the community for me. I taught here 20 years ago, and these kids, are not part of that group, but it's nice to see them when they recognize me in the grocery store or around, or they'll say, hey, I remembered such and such. Or so it's been just kind of a foot in the door to putting names with faces and letting them know about the resources we have at the library, as well as that we are not just, you don't have to come to us, but I can come to them. It's going to build a new relationship, I guess, from what has been here in the past.
And how did that work out with the library, with your duties at the library? Did that go okay? Were you able to sort of mesh those two things together fairly well?
It was well, a lot of it helped me. The school teacher and me helped because I sat down and got my lessons plans done, and that was no big deal. I pulled my resources. It took a couple of hours to do that. At the time, I had 2 full-time veteran staff, and actually, I think they probably enjoyed me not being there on a day. It was like having a 3-day weekend. I went every Monday. We figured that was the best week for the school calendar, and it was an exhausting day for me, and it was like being out a day. So I did have to play catch up with course correspondence and that kind of thing. But I checked in mid-morning when we had our long teacher break. I came in about 45 minutes in the morning, and then I came back to work that afternoon. I worked from 3 to 5:30, so I didn't lose a complete day, but
Okay.
I never got so far behind that I couldn't manage it. So having an experienced staff really helped in that aspect. I was only a couple of blocks away. I could have quit at any time and come in if I needed to, if there'd been an emergency.
Uh-huh. Wow, that's great. I mean, that was taking on a big commitment, but you were able to, keep everything going with your staff, which is great.
Right. Well, we don't open until 9, and by that point I had been at school nearly 2 hours, so it really wasn't much more. If I never take a lunch, but if I took my lunch hour out, it really wasn't much more than me missing half a day. It felt much more intensive to me, but in the scheme of how the library runs, it wasn't. I really wasn't missed.
I just think that's a great thing, for people to know, because your staff is really stretched. These small libraries have really small staff. Sometimes it's just you or whatever, but that you were able to do that and manage it, is a pretty good point, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Who else wants to talk about?
Oh, can I ask Holly? I was going to.
Go ahead.
We haven't seen you since your leadership conference. Yeah, can you give us any highlights from your leadership conference? And did Future Ready have anything to do with your getting invited? Do you think?
I don't think it did, but it has all played together.
Yeah.
The ideas have meshed very well together. This it ended up being a lot more personal conference than I anticipated. It started out with some personality assessments. We're doing a lot of reading by Simon Sinek, who wrote Leaders Eat Last, all of the Why books. There's going to be some extra development and a lot of librarians from different walks. There are academic public school librarians, kind of like what we have here with the Future Ready, and it was a great opportunity to just hear that I am not alone. Actually, things have changed a lot in my world. I had the retirement of one of my employees, which has completely changed the environment and the atmosphere of my library. It's been wonderful, and it was just perfect timing for this leadership thing too. I know that in many cases I'm my own worst enemy, and I'm trying to learn to really manage, but not micromanage, and how to build relationships with, that involve trust. I started out at a very bad environment with things that my predecessor had left, and I don't want to use the word punish, but I went to meet the county judge and I got yelled at for the way things had been done.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a good start. And I had some awkwardness with my board, and so I walked in with a lot of things kind of against me, and I feel like I finally gotten my feet under me, gotten past that, building trust with community members, county people, and so that has helped a lot. But then it's gotten down to where now I have to kind of focus on me. And that was kind of one of the leading themes of the workshop, was about self-care and how you have to, if you can't manage yourself, you can't manage anyone else. And I thought, wiser words have never been spoken. And this job can be all-encompassing. It's kind of like a school teacher job. You never turn it off. There's always watching TV at night, and you're thinking, oh, that'd be great for the library, or, oh, I need to do this, or, oh, I can do that. And it's hard to balance it sometimes. So there was a lot of information at the beginning there, and then we're going to be following up for the next 2 to 3 years with periodic meetings. And I'm really excited about where this can go for me personally and professionally.
So now, Holly, I have another question for you. Would you work with any of your staff, now that you're getting all this awesome staff, to do some of this Future Ready stuff? Could you?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. I've hired 2 part-time people who are very open to change and are very open to patron-friendly things. very forward thinking, they have a lot of initiative, and that's been something I've really needed. So in fact, one of them substitute teaches on the day she's not here, and she would be a great one to turn loose with this project and say, hey, you know, take this and run with it, and you know, use the skeleton of my framework and make it better. So I'm hopeful for that in the future.
That is great. Yeah. Things change.
It's a good first step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Carol, are we done grilling Holly, you think?
I guess so. I don't know. We may come back to you.
That's just fine.
So what else in this next to last of our cohort 2 sessions? Are there other takeaways or next steps that people want to tell us about or ask questions about? Allison, are you raising your hand?
No, I was using my watch, but
okay. I couldn't tell. Like, was there a hand just slightly raising there?
no. I had a meeting with our community partner, the bank, yesterday, because our first event is January 3rd, which is quickly approaching. And so we kind of had our final sit down, and we were actually a little nervous because we didn't know how much of the lead they were going to take. And we got there and we walked away from the meeting and it was just amazing. Honestly, it was awesome. We have a high school student that just graduated and worked for them for 2 years in the work study program that's going to come back and be part of the program and talk to the teens about what he did and what he learned and things like that. And we also have some of the male employees at the bank are super excited about kind of helping the younger boys learn how to tie ties, and they're going to talk about what they wear at work, and they were super excited about it. And we have 13 people signed up for it right now. We can take 20, so I'm going to really start pushing it later this week and at the end. And right now, the majority of the people we have signed up are 6 to 9. So that's really good. We have four 6th and 7th grade boys. So I'm actually excited about that because I was hoping we would get some of the boys too. And it sounds like it's going to be awesome. They're all really excited about it and really looking forward to it. And it was just a great kind of meeting. And now I have more work to do before January 3rd, but I'm excited to get one out of the way and then work towards improving the next. And all of the people that are hosting workshops are really interested in getting together at the end of the year, at the end of the programs, and sitting down together as a big group and working on what worked for everybody and what didn't work and what we would want to do differently in the future. So it seems that even though they haven't done one yet, everyone seems to be committed to doing it again and learning from the whole experience. So
sounds great.
Yes, but I did, by the way, the Seattle Office of Economic Development article is very long, and I had been working on reading it, but I would say to anyone that if they did not get a chance to read it in its entirety, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Thank you. I mean, I had nothing to do with it except for posting it and someone else telling me about it, but it is. I think the way it connects to the work we're doing is pretty amazing, I think, right? Yeah.
Well, and it really helped give me a point of reference because when I was at the meeting with the bank, somebody brought up writing a resume.
Yeah.
And so I explained to them how that expresses critical thinking, writing, and all of those types of skills, but that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's employable.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly. And how? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. But then it clicked to them as well. I mean, as a supervisor, it clicked to them as well. Yeah, you're right, because once it makes perfect sense on the other side, looking at a resume and then you have somebody come and actually interview for a position and it's not the same person.
Yeah, right. And I just think that being able to articulate what the difference is between job readiness and career awareness, and the tie, I was thinking about that when you were talking about how to tie a tie and what to wear. Mm-hmm. That's not job readiness, right? That's just being able to look good in the interview. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I think that's great.
And they're actually going to do a lunch. The bank is actually they decided that they want to host a family style lunch and take an hour and actually talk to the kids about how, if they're at a business lunch, what types of things they should do throughout the lunch, like passing the food. And I hate to use etiquette, but it's going to be, touch a little bit on etiquette if they were in a position where they had to be mm-hmm. at a lunch that's for work, that, you offer this to this person, that's just, to talk what types of topics are appropriate, what types of topics aren't appropriate, mm-hmm. those types of things. And they brought that up all themselves. So I thought that was an interesting concept.
Yeah. YALSA is going to have a webinar on that, in that report. Sasha and maybe the other person are going to in April. I think that's when it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can follow up with everybody with a recording if you don't get to attend. Cool. I thought you were going to tell us you were moving to Seattle or something, Allison, when you started. Like, oh,
no, yeah. but we did, and I know Linda knows this, but the state library did come by and visit with me. I had a couple people from the state library come and talk about Future Ready in general, and also what we've been working on this past year and what programs we're doing in the future. And they were very interested in kind of trying to find certain things that they might be able to use for workshops in 2020 to help other libraries work with the kind of tween age group. So that was pretty rewarding and exciting.
Muted. I keep forgetting I'm muted. So, all right. Sherry, what's happening in your world?
Well, more of the same. The big interest here, of course, has been more on the career aspect than the college, although they definitely are becoming intertwined. Arkansas Tech University, which is our local university, now is expanding their certification programs for skilled trades. And there has been a big push they also do our, what would have been called VOTEC, back in my day, but they call it the Career Center now. They also run the one that is at our FRwtL High School, which provides those services for students from the entire Polk County region and actually out to two other places in another county as well. But they are now looking at doing an emphasis on, for example, in the electricians program or the carpentry program, things like that. They're looking at trying to transition kids from the high school into completing their certifications for whatever they've started in high school, and then getting them enrolled in either the community college at Morrilton or the program at Tech, preferably at Tech, of course, from their point of view, to get them into business courses after that so that they can be, owner operators of their business and their career. So this has been it gives them a more ownership, I guess, over what they want to do in the future. It's not just a career, but it's a chance to be your own boss, make your own way, and that has been a big perk, because there are a lot of these kids who can't fathom the idea of sitting in a chair for 4 more years after they graduate. So this has been huge. We're also having a really successful ACT prep We've got that going also at our headquarters branch. It's funny, our headquarters branch is now taking some cues from us, and they are like, oh, their population's about 12 times what ours is. So that's been really neat, being able to hand off some of those ideas there. And I think I told you before that with the focus on the career and doing the skill trade expo that we did for the students, that's going on again this year. It's expanded. It's already got a lot of sponsorship, and the buzz over it has actually generated some national interest. So it looks like this spring I will be going to Wise University in Virginia for this huge event that they do, where they bring in high school students from all around the area, and I'm going to be on a panel of some sort there. It's still in the negotiations, but Verizon's paying for my trip. It's really exciting.
Yeah, love to hear about that afterwards.
I think that I know that I felt a little bit like, I know that with the emphasis on skilled trade here, that it seems kind of like I might be shutting some opportunities down. It really isn't that way at all. I think that's, and it feels a lot less, I guess it feels more manipulative to a certain degree than going, oh, here are all these things that, you know, that the world has to offer and you need to dream big. But I feel like that the kids are already dreaming. I mean, I taught middle school, and you wouldn't believe how many of those kids would write essays about when they were going to play, you know, pro football, and when they were going to, you know, be video stars and things like that. And I am all for your dreams, but I really feel like you need to have a backup plan in case those don't work out. And so I guess that's a big part of why that this has been such a passion for me, is because where I work, I see a lot of kids that I taught in 6th grade, you know, 7th grade, 8th grade, and I'm seeing what their futures have turned into as opposed to what their dreams were. So I'm hoping that by influencing kids that would not go to college. I mean, that the kids that are going to go to college, I mean, they're urged to do that all through school. That's a market that I really support rather than lead. But this is geared really more toward, in my case, and it's a large percentage of our students, ones that need a backup plan. So if I sound like I'm kind of defending my stance, it's because I'm defending my stance, you know. Anyway.
I love that part, Sherry, about dreams and reality, or whatever. It's not how you said it. You said it a lot more articulately. But I think that one of the things, like in the dreams, I think we've talked about this. There's like parts of those dreams, you don't have to be that star athlete, right? You could be something else working in athletics that could be a more voc tech kind of career, or however I'm supposed to say that. It could be a career that is more oriented to passion than academics. So if you don't have to not hit your dream, you just have to think about it differently, right? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, okay. I love Mike Rowe. I know he's kind of controversial, but I love Mike Rowe because one of the things that he says, you know, don't give up your dreams, but take them with you. Don't follow them as much as take them with you. And to me, that makes it's what I call hedging your bet. You know, yes, there's that dream that you have out there, but if you take it with you and you make it more about your journey, then that is the only end goal I'm looking at. Then that's the way to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Thoughts, Sherry? Thoughts?
I'm just for me, I'm just scrambling around, worried about that paperwork I've got to get done. But anyway,
December 31st, 20 days away or something.
Yeah. How are in general? How are the final reports going? Does anybody have any questions about them? I Anybody?
This is Ann.
Yeah.
I have been working on mine, and I actually just yesterday morning had a meeting that has been rescheduled, of course, 100 times. And I think we've got a really cool idea that would never have come up if I had not done this program. And so we have a native farmers market that the tribe runs, and it goes once a week, like June through October. And then the 7th generation cultural program, they have community gardens where they're trying to really get more people to, you know, learn how to do growing and, you know, take advantage of their own little plot. And so the idea that's come out of this is to have an offering for, especially for younger people, but really for anybody. And they could use their community garden plot and grow produce and then be able to have a stall to sell it at the native farmers market. And this would kind of be like a path to entrepreneurship. And again, this is something that, you know, it would not have occurred to me ever, and we would not have had these same people in the room to get all these connections made if it weren't for this. So.
I'm thinking about how can somebody, so one of the things I love about that and so many of the other things people have done is that this happened in a year, which is like I'm saying, that's okay, right? Like Allison is starting January 3rd. Lois is starting sometime in 2019. You are just like saying, oh, it took this year and we found all this out. So what advice, like, because people still in cohort 3, people are like, I got to do this now. So what advice would Nissa is like, ha, 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 ha. What advice would you tell us to give people? Like, Anne, I love that this happened and you're just sort of putting all these pieces together. What do we tell people?
Be more patient than you think you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we talk? Everybody wants to, I think, jump ahead, jump, into it immediately. So if you could talk to any of those folks in cohort 3, let's say you had one as a mentor for a minute. What would you say to them, each of you? I would love to hear, your reflections on that. Who should we start with? Anybody want to jump in?
Nissa came in late. Understandably, I'm not calling you out.
Yeah.
In that way.
I can jump in. That's fine.
Go for it.
As far as like anything I would say to someone from the new cohort, basically, take it in bite-sized chunks. Don't try to do everything at once. That's why I really liked how everything was kind of spaced out with the different assignments, different readings every month. And it really helped pace the program and the project so that you weren't trying to get everything like almost like a front-loaded thing where you're just trying to do, and then you burn yourself out real quick. But yeah, it's like starting with the just finding out what your community needs. Focus on that for a couple of months. What does your community need? Have those meetings, do the surveys, find the data, and then after that, letting the data drive what you're going to do program-wise, as opposed to what you think, oh, this would be really cool, and it might be really cool, but the data is telling you need to go in this other direction. So letting that drive where you're going. And really just take it easy, little bit at a time.
I can see Linda smiling. I'm guessing she's going to clip that out and post
it. I'm actually, well, I'm also, that's actually, I hadn't thought about that, but that is going into a tweet right now. Sorry. I'm tweeting, let the data drive where you are going. Thank you. I credit, but take time. Learn about, gather the data, whatever that data is, and then let it drive instead of you driving it. That's awesome. Thank you, Carol.
I'm trying to read her mind.
Yeah, right? You were very close. Very close. Other advice?
I felt like I was one of those that came to the ball game a little bit late. So many people had plans before I had anything. I was end of July, August before mine took place. And it really, given the time, it developed organically. And that's something that I wasn't expecting. I went in with a preconceived notion of what I wanted to do and how I wanted it to work. And every opportunity was shot down, basically. This was not the program I had in mind when I started. And I'm so glad it wasn't, because this worked great. But it was all so really nice that I didn't feel any pressure from y'all to get this done. Like Nissa said, everything was kind of paced out for us. There wasn't, we were encouraged to fail, quote unquote. But that was okay. We're trying to create something that's never been done, and you're going to win a few and lose a few. And that's something that's, I feel like I know my community better. I have made inroads into working with my student population. And another thing too, when you're working with kids, it's seasonal. You are bound by their calendar, the contained school year, the extracurricular, the accessibility issues that you may or may not have, especially for rural libraries in the summer. They may be tied up with sports, or they may not be able to get to a program. So you have to look at the seasons that you're working in, so to speak, and just kind of pace yourself with that. But it will develop if you put the work in.
That's awesome. Anybody else? That's really funny. I'm sorry, Holly. I'm sorry about the glasses. Other advice? I mean, because actually today we have a cohort 3 Zoom in an hour and a half. And we're going to be doing that. Remember, Carol and I did that activity with you did we have pennies? Coins, yeah, where we had the wheels?
We did pennies.
Because time management seems to be something that people are challenged by. Like, how do you fit it in? Just going with what they already know. So any time management suggestions?
Keep on pace with our assignments. To me, like I said, I had said one other time that I wish it's been mandatory that we come to these Zoom sessions, but it really kind of kept me focused on where everybody was at, what directions I might could take. The more they are involved with the group as a whole, the more it will stay on their mind. It's so easy to get bogged down in the everydays of running your library, and then you look up and it's Thanksgiving, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do something. And if they will just stay involved with the group and follow the assignments, I think it'll help them pace themselves with it. And like I said, just devote a little bit of time every week to it. That's what I did, and that really helped me.
Cool. Anybody else? So Nisa, what's going on with you besides Project Outcome and life?
Oh, so much. I just spent the lunch today at the middle school, signing up middle schoolers for library cards. That's now a monthly thing, by the way, and that actually came out of this project. Having those meetings with the building principal and and Colleen, the counselor there. And it was Colleen, she's like, you need to be here every single month, sitting at a table outside the lunchroom. And so now I do that every month. And this month was all about getting library cards. And I also bring things that have all of the programs, including my brochures now have a special space for future ready programs. So they come in and honestly, they love the future ready programs, all of the stuff that we've been doing. So it's kind of building its own momentum. And that's the actual kids who are loving it. Parents, I expected parents to like that, but the kids are actually really enjoying it. So that's been really awesome. And yeah, it's kind of exhausting, but she also today, wants to schedule me to talk to all of the language arts classes, which at the school there's Oh, there's a lot. And so that's going to be worked out as far as getting the kids not just into the library, but using library resources for the huge variety of things that we have library resources for. So, you know, entertainment, education, and being future ready, you know. And I also have, of course, the Spring Institute coming up. My proposal was accepted, so yay. So I'm going to be presenting, and Spring Institute, if you don't know, it's in Michigan. It's a youth-centered library conference. So everyone who's going there is either a school librarian, a children's librarian, or teen services. So it's very much speaking to my people, as opposed to something like MLA, which is everybody. And yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind, and I've been spinning on the Future Ready Access for so long, and I want to continue with that because I think that these programs that we've developed are really helpful to the kids that I'm working with, also to the older teens. I've had some older teens show up to some of the Future Ready stuff and wanting to know things like, you know, how to balance a checkbook, which a lot of them are like, but we don't have a checkbook, but this will help me not overdraw when I'm, you know, spending my money. You know, I'll know exactly how much money I have, because they didn't realize that sometimes it takes time for those electronic systems to catch up, and you think you have $200, but you really got 50 because it hasn't caught up yet. So anyways, it's just been a lot of different areas that it's been hitting on, but it's been fantastic. I've loved it so much fun.
So what does the future look like for everybody with Future Ready? I'm not asking about future, like other stuff, but I can't do that. But what about, like, what are you thinking for, I know some of you are just like jumping in to the activity, but what do you think what do you need to keep this going is maybe the better way to ask.
This is Anne again. One of the things that has come up here recently is that the elementary school, which is one of the 3 libraries that I'm responsible for, the principal there, after hearing me talk about what we were doing with middle grade and older kids, she was like, well, we really want to get younger kids also thinking about future ready stuff. So we're figuring out what we can do for that. We don't really have concrete ideas yet, but you know, they do talk about careers and, you know, thinking about one's future. But anyway, so I think we'll do some kind of adaptation for that. But it's exciting that everybody wants everybody to be involved.
That's awesome.
That is great. And hopefully you'll be able to do some sharing with the students, you know, where middle school students can talk to elementary school students and, you know.
That is exactly what I would love to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you think, thinking about the future, is if I were, well, 2 options. We could, like, I could see if the PLA, the Public Library Association, because would be interested in some sort of webinar or something that people who are bringing it elementary would be interested in doing, you know, to help get the word out, or figuring out a way to then help people who work with, because this is YALSA, we don't do younger, but if there's a way to connect so that we can build it, because Carol and I have talked a lot about building across the cohorts and across the country, so to speak, but maybe even building across age groups, right? So if there's a way to connect you all who are thinking the elementary piece too, to other people, would that be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think really everybody who I've talked to about this stuff, like everybody is excited, even if it's, you know, grown-ups. Like it's, you know, I haven't run into anyone who wasn't excited about the idea.
Cool. Other future plans, ideas, needs? So I will just remind people, we still have 15 minutes, but I don't want to forget to say this, is that now that you are at the end of this project, you submit your final report, and you also will pay for a conference. Well, 500, up to 500, well, we give you $500, but we need a receipt for registration and travel costs, and we can give you $500 for a conference that relates to this kind of work. So it could be big. It doesn't have to be a specific teen conference, but it could be something that relates to youth and community and stuff like that. So don't forget that, because Cohort 1 is not taking advantage of that as much as they could have. So I will send reminders out periodically, but just keep in mind that you can, anyone who has submitted their final report already, and Allison, I know your final report's going to be later, but you could ask for it early. But anyone who either has submitted their final report, or we've said, yes, you can submit your final report later, you should start thinking about that. And like I said, we need receipts. We can't give you the $500 without $500 worth of receipts, but definitely take advantage.
Yeah, spend that gold.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You worked hard. If there's a conference you've always wanted to go to, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's something, right?
Has anybody been to other than librarian conferences that they found really useful? I know I went to a teachers conference once, and I think it was high school teachers, but it was really, it just gave me so much to use in librarianship. Anybody else ever been to something that's outside the library purview of conferences? No. Just wonder. I think a trade conference would be great. Something about the workforce.
Or even entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Yep.
I'm very excited because in April, the, oh my gosh, went out of my head, Ready by 21 conferences in Seattle, which is all about people who work with youth and community. So it could be schools, it could be libraries, boys and girls clubs, 4-H, Chamber of Commerce, and they all come together. So there's that.
That sounds like an invitation to Seattle in April, which is a good time to be in Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in October, I know I long time ago, I mentioned this somewhere, is that CASEL, the Collaboratory for the Advancement of Social Emotional Learning, is having their first ever conference in Chicago. And so it's a social emotional learning conference, which I'm hoping to be able to go to that. I'm going to put both those links in here. Social Emotional Learning Exchange, October 2nd through 4th in Chicago. There's that.
Oh, I see Anne's going to be at ALA.
Cool. Who else is going to be at ALA?
Anybody?
Carol's going to be there for a little bit at least, right?
Yeah.
Todd's going to be there for a little bit, I think. Anybody else? Well, just let me chat. There you go. Yeah, we should get together.
Absolutely.
That link is wrong, sorry. So Carol, actually, we're talking like aside. Are you just going to be there on that Monday, do you think, in Seattle?
I may be there on the Sunday as well, but you mean staying later? I might.
Yeah, or just if we wanted to
get together
with Anne. Yeah.
Yeah, I could certainly try to work it out. You bet.
Cool. All right. Oh, that's cool, Holly. I finally got that link right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it took my.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Well, it's your $500 to spend. And as Linda said, you certainly did earn it, So I hope everybody does take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Anne, what did you say? That's like double your budget? Which is great. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Most of which I usually spend on the library assistants instead of myself.
Yeah, so spend it on yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'll reserve this $500 for me.
Yeah, and then they get the rest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. That works perfectly. What are other things, questions as we finish up the work? None?
How was going through this process a second time for both of you?
Second time? Third time?
Well,
With you mean with this cohort? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you, wait. Okay, Carol, answer that question because I don't know what the question means.
Well, how was the second year compared to the first years, you know, I think. And,
Yep.
You know, we got a lot better at it, I think. You know, these Zooms meetings really, really helped. I think if I could say anything that was really the big advantage over the first year was that I think people connect and got to be, you know, share more with one another. So, and we didn't start off with those. We added those maybe even the first year, but I can't even remember.
Yeah, later in the first.
Late. Yeah. You know. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, and the COP's gotten better. You know, it was really raggedy kind of at first, but it got lots better. But I think we see that, don't want to take up all the time, but I think we see that this time takes time. This is not an easy, as we have always said, this is a radical project, and going out and working with community partners in the way that people have is not something we've been doing, you know, really creating partnerships. Yeah. So it takes a lot of time. Linda?
Yes to all of that. And I think we better understood what people needed in the second year, and not just needed in terms of like the curriculum that Carol worked on, but needed in terms of support from each other. Mm-hmm. Like we got better, I think, at finding ways and promoting that, right, Carol? Wouldn't you say that we did a better job at like connecting people, or maybe you all connected yourself?
For whatever reasons, people connected better, and I would like to think we helped with that. But you know, I think some of that was just kind of chemistry too. Mm-hmm. But I think, like I said, I think coming together and, you know, there's something about seeing each other and talking about through things that I think really helped. Yeah, and our own patience, you know, we realized how much time it takes.
Yeah.
So we got better at being a little looser ourselves. Yeah.
Actually, you're reminding me, Carol, and I don't know if you were in at this early stage, but in an early version of the application for cohort 1, I had written like people were going to have to spend, I think, 10 hours a week or something on this project. And I got so much pushback on that from the team who helped get things off the ground. But I realized that you actually probably you don't spend 10 hours a week, but how much time do you think you would average spend on this? Because I think you spend more than we actually ask for. We ask for 2 to 3 hours a week, right? So you think you spend about 5, Allison?
I would say at this point, yeah, probably about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, there might have been some weeks in the beginning I might have spent 10 hours.
Yeah.
Especially when we had to set up a lot of meetings with people in the community.
Yeah.
But I think now that it's rolling, I would say easily 5 hours.
5 hours, huh?
Yeah. And would you say that time, though, like you're spending it on Future Ready, but it has a longer
reach,
right? So it's not, even though you're working on Future Ready, you're not just working on Future Ready. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah.
Well, in programs we already have, I'm sure all of us, we turn on that Future Ready switch in everything, all the programs that we have now. So even though we're not calling them specific programs, we have programs that we can pull in parts of what we've learned and what we're doing for those specific programs into what's already in existence.
You know, I think that's the best part, as people have spoken of it before, that the Future Ready switch has been turned on, and therefore you think about it in a lot of other different situations, applications. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, go ahead, Allison.
I was going to say that's what this one of what Catherine and Bethany asked me from the state library is, when does that switch turn on? I mean, you really can't. It just does, and that's and it takes time, and I think that that's the hard part, is that it takes time, and it takes a lot of time, and it doesn't just happen.
But it goes back, the whole thing is an investment. I talked to people that I would not talk to in the course of my day. I connected with business owners that I would not have seen otherwise. It was as much promotion and building relationships for the library in the future as it was to promote this program. So whatever we spent, to me, feels like an investment in the future of successful library programs.
So I have another question, of course. But I'm thinking, because I am thinking, like, we're in our third year, we will not have funding to keep this going forever. But what if, is there a way, because this is all like great info and really useful, thinking about how we might make this work. Hi, Mary. Hello. So I'm wondering if we might have a YALSA e-course where we take some of these, don't know who that was, take some of these ideas, and if people were interested in developing this with me, like we could have a multi-week course where we help people get this switch turned on. I don't know if it's possible, but like a 6-week something. Would that work? You can think about it. And I'll ask in an email or on the COP. Or you can tell me now. I'm just reading the chat.
Nisa, tell us quickly about the award you were chatting about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have a thing called Breakfast for Champions that our local Chamber of Commerce does. And we had a table, and the director invited some of the people from our library. We thought, oh, this is just a nice little breakfast thing. It turns out we won the Customer Service Award. And they were talking specifically about the change in culture and our change to like a yes library, and how connected we are with the community. And it was really nice. It was so cool. Very surprising.
Wow. Yeah. Look, that's great. And yet your yes attitude. I mean, that's perfect.
Great. All right. We're going to call it a wrap, I think, but thank you. We do have one more session.
I don't know how to unmute. Do you?
Oh, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. If you have, a couple of people had said that they'd be interested in helping, thinking about the some sort of e-course or something, we can definitely work on that, and I will be in touch on that. If you have anything else, let us know, but we have one more week. Next week, we have our last live Zoom for this group. So we will see you.
Come back.
Come back.
Come back if you can.
And very happy to have you here and talk about final whatever.
All right.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
you
everybody.
all. Good meeting. Yep.